When your own mother takes the stand and says you're guilty, there's no PR team in the world that can save you. At first, everyone thought the Diddy trial was just another celebrity scandal, flashy headlines, high-priced lawyers, and a famous face dodging accountability. But all of that changed the moment Janice Combs, Diddy's own mother, walked into the courtroom. She wasn't loud, she didn't cry, she just sat down, took a deep breath, and started talking. She spoke about her son, not as a superstar, not as a mogul, but as a boy she raised in Harlem. The boy who held her hand when he was scared. The boy who promised he'd never lose himself. Then, slowly, she talked about how he changed, how money and power didn't just corrupt him, they consumed him. For the first time since the trial began, Diddy cracked. His lips trembled, his eyes welled up. The confident mask he wore every day gone. And the courtroom, you could hear a pin drop. No one dared to interrupt this moment. Janice didn't accuse. She didn't even judge. She just told the truth. She said, "I love my son, but no amount of money, fame, or power excuses what he did." Even the defense didn't press hard during cross-examination. How could they? What were they going to do? Tear down a grieving mother? And then came the prosecution's next move, a family psychologist. A soft-spoken expert who'd been analyzing Janice's written journals for over a decade. She called Janice's testimony a moral rupture, something that happens when a parent's love for the truth outweighs their fear of destroying the person they raised. She painted Diddy as someone who lived inside a bubble of control, a man who weaponized fame to shield himself, a man who demanded silence from everyone, including the people who loved him most. The jury wasn't just listening, they were feeling it. One juror wiped tears from her cheek. Another kept shaking his head in disbelief. Something had shifted. This wasn't about lawyers anymore. This was about conscience. And then, the bombshell. The next morning, Diddy's legal team requested a delay. Nobody knew why, until Diddy stood up and said he was going to testify. He walked to the stand slowly, looked pale, looked scared, looked real. "I listened to my mother yesterday," he said. "Really listened. And what followed, no one saw coming." He admitted it. He said he created a world where people couldn't say no, where loyalty was rewarded and resistance was punished. He said, "I didn't call it coercion, I called it leverage." But it was wrong. Under cross-examination, Diddy confirmed that what he did, the pressure, the manipulation, the silence he forced on his victims, all lined up with the legal definitions of the charges against him. He said his memory was hazy from years of substance abuse, but the patterns were undeniable. And then he looked at the jury and said, "Hearing my mother speak the truth broke something in me." The judge called a recess. The courtroom was stunned. No one spoke. No one moved. When they returned, Diddy's lawyers met privately with the prosecution. 15 minutes later, they came back in, and Diddy changed his plea. Guilty. No trial, no closing arguments, no long deliberation, just a man standing up, saying, "I can't in good conscience continue to deny responsibility." The judge accepted the plea. Reporters sprinted out of the room. His mother sat quietly in the back, hands folded, eyes closed. In the end, it wasn't the prosecution, the press, or the public that broke Diddy. It was his mother. And now the question is, what would you do if your own child confessed to something like this? Would you stay silent or speak? What if the man who once ruled the music world with platinum records, champagne-soaked parties, and A-list connections is now running from a storm of allegations so serious they're shaking the very core of the entertainment industry? This isn't just a fall from grace. This is a public unraveling of power, money, and secrets. Sean Diddy Combs, a hip-hop mogul once worshipped like royalty, is now facing a firestorm of lawsuits, federal raids, and a deeply troubling paper trail of accusations that reads more like a thriller novel than real life. It all started with whispers. Quiet rumors in industry circles, Artists falling out with Diddy, odd moments caught on camera, cryptic comments in interviews. But no one wanted to say it out loud. Not about Diddy. He was untouchable, too powerful, too connected, too smart to get caught. Or so we thought. Then came November 2023, the first major crack in the armor. Cassie Ventura, Diddy's longtime girlfriend and former Bad Boy Records artist, filed a bombshell lawsuit. She didn't hold back. She accused him of rape, physical abuse, and human trafficking, allegations spanning nearly a decade. Cassie described a life of control, manipulation, and fear, a relationship that was less about love and more about domination. Diddy denied everything. Within 24 hours, the case was settled and the media moved on. But something had shifted. Cassie's lawsuit opened the floodgates. Suddenly, other lawsuits started piling up. Models, former employees, anonymous Jane Does. They painted a chillingly consistent picture. Diddy wasn't just abusive in private. He was allegedly running a dark empire behind the scenes. Allegations included sex trafficking, non-consensual encounters, illegal drugs, and forced acts involving third parties. The stories were graphic, disturbing, and eerily similar. A pattern began to emerge, one where Diddy allegedly used his wealth, influence, and private spaces to trap, exploit, and silence people. And then, things escalated. On March 25, 2024, the unthinkable happened. Homeland Security agents raided Diddy's homes in Los Angeles and Miami. Helicopters, armored vehicles, federal agents. It looked like a scene out of a movie. But this was real. The feds were reportedly investigating Diddy for sex trafficking and related crimes. They seized hard drives, surveillance footage, documents, everything. They also detained his sons temporarily during the raid. It was chaotic, it was humiliating, and it was broadcast across the world in real time. The hip-hop icon had officially become a criminal suspect. So, what exactly is the government looking for? According to reports, authorities believe Diddy may have orchestrated a sophisticated sex trafficking operation involving private jets, paid escorts, hidden cameras, and NDAs. One anonymous lawsuit even claims Diddy would fly women across state lines for illicit purposes, often drugging them and recording encounters without consent. There are allegations of secret rooms, hush money payments, threats of violence, and a long list of enablers, managers, bodyguards, assistants, who may have helped keep the machine running. But the most terrifying part? The possibility that Diddy operated with impunity for decades because of who he was. If true, this would mean an entire industry either turned a blind eye or actively protected him. It wouldn't be the first time the entertainment world shielded a predator. We've seen this story before. Weinstein, Epstein, R. Kelly. Powerful men, untouchable for years, finally brought down by a combination of brave survivors and unstoppable investigations. Is Diddy the next domino to fall? And don't forget the list of people who've mysteriously fallen out with Diddy over the years. From Shine, who took a prison sentence for Diddy in the early 2000s, to Kim Porter, the mother of his children, whose sudden death in 2018 still raises eyebrows. While there's no concrete evidence linking Diddy to foul play, the conspiracy theories online are relentless. Some even suggest that Diddy maintained a vault of compromising material on celebrities and politicians, using it as insurance. Wild? Maybe. But in a world where billionaires have their own private islands and underground parties, nothing seems too far-fetched anymore. What makes this even more complex is how divided public opinion is. On one hand, some fans refuse to believe it. They see Diddy as a legend, a hustler who came from nothing and built an empire. To them, he's being targeted by opportunists and cancel culture. But others believe the writing's been on the wall for years. They point to the many lawsuits, the pattern of behavior, and the sheer number of accusations. At what point does it stop being a coincidence? One thing's for sure, this isn't going away. The legal process is slow, but it's moving. Diddy's financial empire is under strain. Major partners are distancing themselves. His public image has taken a massive hit. And even if he never serves a day in prison, his legacy may already be shattered. The question now isn't just, is Diddy guilty? It's, how deep does this go? How many people knew? How long has this been happening? And who's next? This case has also forced a bigger conversation in the entertainment world about power, about silence, about complicity. If Diddy, a man with Grammys, brands, and billionaire status, can be investigated for trafficking and abuse, then maybe no one's safe. Maybe the industry is finally being forced to reckon with the darkness that's been hiding behind red carpets and flashing cameras for far too long. And yet, there's still a sense of disbelief. Because Diddy was more than just a musician. He was a symbol of Black excellence, of hustle culture, of success against all odds. Seeing that symbol collapse under the weight of these allegations is like watching a building you thought was indestructible crumble in slow motion. It's unsettling, it's tragic, and it's far from over. As more alleged victims come forward, the pressure on prosecutors intensifies. Each lawsuit paints the same terrifying picture. A world where fame wasn't just a shield, it was a weapon. Diddy, if guilty, didn't just use power. He allegedly weaponized it in the worst ways imaginable. And now, the house of cards might finally be falling. So what happens next? Federal prosecutors will sift through the evidence seized during the raids. They'll analyze digital communications, bank transfers, surveillance footage, and testimonies. If the case is strong enough, they may bring formal charges. If not, the lawsuits will continue in civil court, where the burden of proof is lower. Either way, Diddy's fight is just beginning. And unlike in the past, money and NDAs may not be enough to silence the storm. The next few months will be critical. Will we see a grand jury indictment? Will more collaborators be named? Will Diddy finally speak out in detail, or will he retreat further into silence? No one knows for sure. But one thing is certain, this is more than a scandal. It's a reckoning. And the music industry, once complicit in turning bad behavior into legends, is finally being forced to face the consequences. You might have once danced to his hits or followed his business moves, but after everything that's come out and everything that's still coming, how will you remember Sean Diddy Combs? As a pioneer or a predator? That question might define the next chapter of pop culture history. Digging deeper, the alleged network behind Diddy's operations isn't just about him as a single individual. It reportedly involves a complex web of associates, insiders, and enablers. People who had everything to gain by keeping quiet. Industry insiders whisper about trusted confidants, longtime managers, security teams, and even some artists who may have knowingly turned a blind eye or actively participated. Some say the system was rigged to protect the powerful at all costs, with money and threats silencing those who tried to speak out. The question is no longer just about Diddy's guilt, but about the complicity of those around him. The next few months will be critical. Will we see a grand jury indictment? Will more collaborators be named? Will Diddy finally speak out in detail, or will he retreat further into silence? No one knows for sure, but one thing is certain, this is more than a scandal, it's a reckoning. And the music industry, once complicit in turning bad behavior into legends, is finally being forced to face the consequences. You might have once danced to his hits or followed his business moves, but after everything that's come out and everything that's still coming, how will you remember Sean Diddy Combs? As a pioneer or a predator? That question might define the next chapter of pop culture history. Digging deeper, the alleged network behind Diddy's operations isn't just about him as a single individual. It reportedly involves a complex web of associates, insiders, and enablers, people who had everything to gain by keeping quiet. Industry insiders whisper about trusted confidants, longtime managers, security teams, and even some artists who may have knowingly turned a blind eye or actively participated. Some say the system was rigged to protect the powerful at all costs, with money and threats silencing those who tried to speak out. The question is no longer just about Diddy's guilt, but about the complicity of those around him. The impact on Diddy's business empire is equally dramatic. His once mighty brand has seen partnerships severed and investments frozen. Corporate sponsors are reassessing deals, and stock prices linked to his ventures have plummeted. Even his music streaming numbers have dropped as playlists remove his tracks amid the controversy. The financial fallout illustrates how serious allegations can ripple far beyond personal reputation, threatening entire business ecosystems built around a single figure. But beyond the headlines and lawsuits, there are human stories that rarely make the front page. Survivors who have spoken out describe long journeys of pain, silence, and courage. Many say coming forward wasn't just about seeking justice, it was about breaking free from a cycle of trauma. Support groups and legal organizations are rallying to provide resources and protection for those willing to stand up, showing the power of community in the face of powerful adversaries. This scandal also forces a painful reckoning about the culture within the music industry and entertainment at large. For decades, artists, producers, and executives have navigated a world where excess, secrecy, and abuse could be dismissed as part of the business. The Diddy case is sparking calls for systemic change, from stricter regulations and better protection for artists and employees to zero tolerance for abuse of power. Industry leaders are now under unprecedented pressure to prove they are serious about reform. Meanwhile, some voices caution against rushing to judgment. They argue that high-profile cases like this can sometimes be weaponized for personal or financial gain. Diddy's defenders insist that the presumption of innocence must be upheld until proven guilty. Legal analysts point out that media sensationalism can distort facts and impact fair trials. This tension between justice and due process is playing out in courtrooms and public opinion alike, highlighting the complexities of holding the powerful accountable. Amidst this turmoil, Diddy's personal life remains under intense scrutiny. Reports suggest he's been laying low, cutting off most public appearances and interviews. Friends close to him describe a man grappling with the weight of the allegations and the potential destruction of his legacy. His children, too, are caught in the crossfire, navigating a world where their father is both a titan and a target. The human toll of this saga extends beyond legal battles, touching families, friends, and communities. The entertainment world is watching closely, knowing this case could redefine how power and abuse are handled in the industry forever. Will it become a watershed moment that leads to real change? Or will it be another scandal buried under money and influence? The stakes are high, not just for Diddy, but for everyone who's ever been silenced or exploited in the name of fame and fortune. In the coming months, expect more revelations, courtroom drama, and media frenzy. The story is far from over. Whether Diddy faces trial or reaches settlements, the echoes of this scandal will reverberate for years. It challenges us all to rethink what we accept as normal in celebrity culture and demands that justice be more than a headline. It must be a reality. As you reflect on everything uncovered so far, ask yourself, what does this say about the world we live in? How many powerful figures remain untouchable? And most importantly, how can we support survivors and ensure that no one is above the law, no matter how famous or wealthy they are? This is a story about power, privilege, and the fight for truth in the darkest corners of fame. Sean Diddy Combs may be the face of this scandal, but the real story is about a system and a culture that allowed it to happen. The question now is whether that system will finally change. The allegations against Sean Diddy Combs have sparked a conversation that goes far beyond just one celebrity's downfall. They have forced society to confront uncomfortable truths about how power operates in the entertainment world and beyond. For decades, the glittering surface of the music and nightlife industry has masked a darker reality, where exploitation and abuse have too often been ignored or covered up. One of the most troubling aspects of this case is how it sheds light on the mechanisms that allow such behavior to persist. It's not just about individual wrongdoing. It's about entire systems designed to protect the powerful. From the way contracts are structured to non-disclosure agreements that effectively silence victims, to a culture that rewards loyalty and secrecy, these systems create a perfect storm where abuse can thrive unchecked. Survivors and whistleblowers have described a chilling pattern. Victims who come forward face retaliation, smear campaigns, or legal threats. Some are pressured to remain silent with promises of financial settlements or career advancement. Others find themselves blacklisted, struggling to find work or maintain their reputations. This dynamic creates a vicious cycle. Silence breeds more abuse, and fear keeps it hidden. Meanwhile, investigators and prosecutors face enormous challenges. High-profile defendants like Diddy can afford the best legal teams, and their influence can sway public opinion and even potential jurors. Gathering evidence in cases of alleged trafficking and abuse is inherently difficult, often relying on witness testimony that can be undermined by intimidation or conflicting accounts. Yet, the scale of the allegations here, involving dozens of alleged victims, is unprecedented and could prove a turning point. Public opinion is deeply divided. While many are quick to condemn Diddy, others insist on separating the man from the accusations until the legal process plays out. This split reveals a broader societal tension. How do we reconcile the desire for justice with the principles of fairness and due process? How do we balance the voices of survivors with the presumption of innocence? In this debate, social media has played a double-edged role. On one hand, platforms like Twitter and Instagram have empowered survivors to share their stories and find support. Hashtags and viral posts have amplified calls for accountability and transparency. On the other hand, misinformation and online harassment have complicated matters, with false claims and conspiracy theories muddying the waters. The digital age has changed the way justice is pursued and perceived, adding layers of complexity to already challenging cases. The business fallout for Diddy has been swift and severe. Major brands and partners, wary of reputational damage, have distanced themselves or paused collaborations. Concert promoters have canceled or postponed events linked to his name, and streaming services have quietly removed or downranked his music in certain playlists. These financial consequences underscore how allegations of this nature can impact far more than personal image. They can threaten entire livelihoods and industries. Yet, even as Diddy's empire faces instability, the broader entertainment community watches nervously. Many fear that this scandal could open a floodgate, exposing similar abuses across the industry. It raises questions about how many other powerful figures may be hiding dark secrets behind carefully curated images. In response, some studios, labels, and agencies have started reviewing their internal policies and codes of conduct, trying to rebuild trust and ensure safer workplaces. Amid all this, the voices of survivors remain the most powerful and poignant. Many of those who have come forward speak not only of the trauma they endured, but also of the courage it took to break their silence. Their stories reveal a stark contrast between the glamorous, larger-than-life public persona of Diddy and the harsh realities faced behind closed doors. Support organizations have mobilized, providing counseling, legal aid, and advocacy, highlighting the importance of community and resilience in the face of trauma. At the same time, legal experts warn that the case's complexity means it will likely take years to reach a resolution. The sheer volume of evidence, the number of witnesses, and the high stakes involved make it one of the most challenging trials in recent history. Appeals, motions, and legal maneuvering are expected to prolong the process, keeping public attention focused on every development. International observers are also paying close attention. The case resonates globally, touching on universal issues of power, justice, and human rights. In some countries, it has inspired renewed calls for better protections against trafficking and abuse, as well as stronger enforcement mechanisms. The ripple effect could lead to lasting changes far beyond the borders of the U.S. entertainment industry. While the story of Sean Diddy Combs is still unfolding, its implications are clear. The era of unchecked celebrity privilege is being challenged like never before. This case is testing the limits of accountability in a world where fame and fortune have often insulated the powerful from consequences. It's a stark reminder that no one, regardless of their status, should be above the law. As this saga continues, it invites us to reflect on deeper societal questions. How do we create systems that protect the vulnerable? How do we empower victims to come forward without fear? And how do we transform industries built on glamour and secrecy into spaces of respect and integrity? In the end, this is not just a story about one man or one scandal. It's a story about a culture at a crossroads. Whether it leads to real reform or fades into just another cautionary tale depends on the actions of individuals, institutions, and society as a whole. The legacy of this case may very well be measured not by the verdict in court, but by the changes it sparks in how we think about power, justice, and human dignity.